The great council chamber was silent. Every alien in the room felt fear deep in their hearts. Ambassador Tal of the Vorthan Empire stood at the center of the room. His crystal voice shook as he spoke about the terrible news. "The machines called Devourers have taken another system," he said. The hologram above his head showed planets being destroyed one by one. They came without warning. Our best ships could not stop them. In just 3 days, they stripped 5 worlds completely clean. The room filled with worried voices. Representatives from dozens of different alien species looked at each other with frightened eyes. The Devourers were not like any enemy they had faced before. These machines did not want to rule or make deals. They only wanted to consume everything in their path. Chancellor Marr stood up from his seat. His green-scaled skin looked pale under the lights. "Our military experts say the machines will control the entire galaxy in 50 years. Maybe less." General Vac of the great military forces hit his fist on the table. "Every time we fight them, they learn from our attacks. Our best weapons become useless after the first battle. How do we fight an enemy that becomes stronger every time we hurt it?" An old scholar named Rin raised his thin arm. His species had lived longer than any other in the galaxy. They kept the oldest stories and records. "There are ancient writings," he said in a weak voice. "Very old texts speak of a species from the far edge of the galaxy." "What kind of species?" asked Chancellor Marr. "The old stories say they were different from us. They lived in a dangerous part of space where survival was hard. The texts say they had a special gift for war and fighting." General Vac made a rude noise. "Old stories will not save us now. We need real weapons and real ships." "But the stories might be true," Rin continued. "The ancient texts call them humans. They say these beings could adapt to any situation. They could fight in ways that no other species could understand." "Where are these humans now?" asked Ambassador Tal. "No one knows. The stories are thousands of years old. Most people think humans never existed at all. They think the stories are just myths." The room became quiet again. Everyone was thinking about what the old scholar had said. Could there really be a species out there that could help them? Or were they all going to die fighting machines that could not be beaten? Far away from the council chamber, in the dark spaces between the stars, something was moving. Old machines that had been sleeping for a long time were waking up. They had heard the emergency signals that had been broadcasting across the galaxy for months. Captain Kim was looking at screens full of information on his ship called the Indomitable. He was a human, though the aliens in the galaxy did not know his species existed. His ship was one of 12 that were traveling toward the signals they had detected. "Officer Saul, are we getting any answers to our messages?" Kim asked. "No, sir," Sewell replied. "All we can hear are emergency broadcasts. Something called the Devourers is attacking everyone." Officer Young walked up to the captain with a data pad in her hands. "Captain, we have finished studying the signals. The situation is very bad. A machine intelligence is destroying entire civilizations. Multiple alien species are facing complete extinction." Kim nodded slowly. His people had faced their own dark times in the past. They had learned how to survive when everything seemed hopeless. "Set our course for the nearest battle zone. It is time to show these aliens that they are not alone." The human ships moved through space like sharks swimming through dark water. They were smaller than the great alien warships, but they were built for a different kind of fighting. Human ships could move fast and change direction quickly. They were designed by a species that had learned to win battles against impossible odds. On his ship, Kim was reading reports about the enemy. The Devourers were machines that could learn and adapt. Every time someone used a weapon against them, they became immune to that weapon. Every time someone used a tactic against them, they learned to counter it. "This is interesting," Kim said to his crew. "These machines think that war is about finding the perfect solution to every problem." "What do you mean, sir?" asked Young. "They learn to counter every attack, every strategy, every weapon. But they are thinking like machines. They believe that for every action, there is one correct response." Engineer Jin looked up from her station. "But humans do not fight that way." "Exactly," Kim smiled. "We do not look for the perfect solution. We look for solutions that work right now in this moment, with what we have available." The captain walked to the big window that showed the stars outside. "These aliens have been fighting a traditional war. They make plans, they use their best weapons, they try to be smart and careful. And the machines learned to beat that kind of fighting," said Young. "Yes, but humans learned long ago that sometimes the best strategy is to have no strategy at all. Sometimes the best plan is to throw out all your plans and improvise. Officer Min spoke up from his position. Sir, we are detecting a battle in the next system. It looks like alien ships are fighting the Devourers right now. Kim turned back to his crew. Then we are about to give both sides a surprise. The aliens will discover that humans are real, and the machines will discover that some enemies cannot be predicted or countered. The Indomitable and its sister ships jumped into hyperspace. They were carrying representatives of a species that the galaxy thought was just a myth. But myths, Kim knew, sometimes had a way of becoming very real when people needed them most. As the human fleet traveled toward their first battle, Kim thought about what they were about to face. The Devourers had conquered most of the galaxy by being perfect military machines. They adapted to every threat, learned from every encounter, and never made the same mistake twice. But humans had never tried to be perfect. They had tried to be unpredictable, flexible, and creative. Where the machines saw problems to be solved, humans saw opportunities to be seized. Where the machines calculated optimal responses, humans improvised whatever worked. All ships, Kim announced over the fleet communication system. We are about to enter our first battle against an enemy that has never lost. But they have never fought humans before. Show them what it means to face a species that treats chaos as a weapon. The 12 human ships dropped out of hyperspace and into a battle that would change the galaxy forever. The Vorthon defense fleet was dying. Admiral Tar watched his ships explode one by one around the mining world of Kepter. The enemy machines called Devourers moved through space like Black Death. Their ships were dark and angular, cutting through his fleet like knives through paper. Admiral, we have lost another cruiser, his communications officer reported. Fear filled the alien's voice. How many ships do we have left? Tar asked. Only 12, sir. The machines have destroyed everything else. Tar felt hopeless. His people had fought bravely, but it was not enough. The Devourer ships had shields that adapted to every weapon his fleet used. After the first few shots, their weapons became useless. The enemy learned too fast. Sir, we are detecting new ships entering the system, the sensor operator called out. 12 unknown vessels appeared at the edge of the system. They looked different from any ship in the galactic database. Their hulls were sleek and aggressive, like hunting animals ready to strike. Strange symbols were painted on their sides. Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Tar of the Vorthon Defense Force, he broadcast. This system is under attack by hostile forces. You should leave immediately for your own safety. The reply came in slightly strange galactic language. Admiral, this is Captain Kim of the United Earth ship Indomitable. We received your distress calls. Humanity has come to help. Humanity? Tar had never heard this word before. His translator could not find it in any database. I do not know your species. We have been keeping to ourselves, Kim replied. We are studying the battle situation now. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Kim looked at the tactical displays. The battle was almost over. The alien ships were barely fighting back while the machine ships moved in perfect formation. Officer Ho, what do you think about these enemy machines? Kim asked his tactical officer. Sir, they use adaptive technology, but it follows patterns. Each time their shields change to stop one type of weapon, they become weak against other types. They are strong against repeated attacks, but weak when we keep changing our tactics. Weapons Officer A studied her screens. Captain, I can read their shield frequencies. If we change our weapon types every 30 seconds and attack from random directions, we can stay ahead of their adaptation systems. Interesting, said Chief Engineer Jin from her station. They focus on efficiency over backup systems. Very logical for machines, but it creates weaknesses we can exploit. Kim smiled. Humans had always been good at finding weaknesses that others missed. While other species tried to be perfect, humans learned to be unpredictable. All ships, this is Indomitable. Begin chaos protocol. Show these machines what happens when perfect order meets creative chaos. The human fleet suddenly spread out in all directions. Each ship began moving in ways that seemed crazy and random. They flew in zigzag patterns, spinning and diving like they were dancing rather than fighting. The Devourer machines tried to target them, but could not predict where the human ships would go next. Their targeting computers were designed to calculate the most logical flight paths, but humans were not flying in logical patterns. Then the human ships opened fire. Their weapons fired in completely random sequences. Plasma beams followed by solid projectiles, then electromagnetic pulses, then back to plasma but at different frequencies. The machine ships had never encountered anything like this. The Devourer's shields tried to adapt, but every time they changed to stop one type of attack, 3 different types of attacks hit them immediately after. Their adaptation systems could not keep up with the constant changes. Admiral Tar watched in amazement as the first machine ship exploded under human fire. "How are they doing this?" he asked his crew. "Unknown tactics, sir. Their attack patterns seem completely random, but they are destroying the enemy ships." Not random, Tar realized as he watched more carefully. Chaotic. There is a difference. Random means no pattern at all. Chaotic means patterns that cannot be predicted. The human ships continued their strange dance around the battlefield. Ship Brave dove under a machine vessel while firing upward. Ship Thunder attacked from the left while Ship Lightning attacked from the right at the exact same moment. Ship Storm seemed to flee in terror, only to suddenly turn around and attack from behind just when the enemy thought it was safe. "Their weapons are not more powerful than ours," Tar's tactical officer observed, "but they use them in ways we never considered." On the Indomitable, Kim watched his fleet work with satisfaction. "Officer Ho, report on enemy status." "Sir, the machine ships are having trouble with their adaptation systems. They keep changing their defenses, but we keep changing our attacks faster than they can respond." Engineer Jin looked up from her console. "Captain, their shield systems are overloading. They are trying to adapt to too many different threats at the same time." "Good," Kim said. "Continue the attack pattern. Do not let them settle into any defensive routine." The battle was turning into something the galaxy had never seen before. The machine ships, which had defeated every organized fleet they encountered, were being destroyed by ships that fought like they had no organization at all. But Kim knew the truth. His ships were not disorganized. They were organized in a way that machines could not understand. Each human captain was making independent decisions based on what they saw in front of them, but they were all working toward the same goal using the same principles. "Adapt to the situation, not to the plan," Kim said quietly, repeating an old human military saying. Another machine ship exploded, then another. The perfect Devourer formation began to break apart as individual ships tried to pursue human vessels that refused to fly in straight lines. Admiral Tar could hardly believe what he was seeing. "Communications. Send a message to these humans. Tell them the Vorthan Empire is grateful for their assistance." "Message sent, sir." The reply came quickly. "Admiral, this is just the beginning. We have a lot to learn about each other and a galaxy to save." As the last machine ship in the system exploded, Tar realized that everything had changed. The species that existed only in ancient myths had proven themselves real. More importantly, they had proven that the Devourers could be defeated. The galaxy finally had hope again. News of the human victory at Keptar traveled across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every species that had heard the ancient stories suddenly believed them. The mythical beings were real and they could do what seemed impossible. They could defeat the Devourers. In the council chamber, emergency meetings ran day and night. Ambassador Tal played the battle recordings over and over again. Military experts from every species studied the footage, trying to understand how the humans fought. "Look at their ship movements." General Vac pointed at the holographic display. "They break every rule of space combat. They fly into positions where the enemy should be able to destroy them easily, but somehow they survive." Chancellor Mar watched a human ship spin upside down while firing in 3 different directions. "Their ships appear weaker than our best vessels, but they achieved victory in minutes when our fleets failed for days." The old scholar Rin shuffled forward with bright eyes. The ancient texts spoke of their true nature. They called humans masters of adaptation and beings who dance with chaos. "Impossible," General Vac said loudly. "No species can ignore the basic laws of military strategy." "Perhaps," Rin replied quietly. "We do not understand what military strategy means to them." All across the galaxy, desperate planets began sending messages on every frequency they could reach. They begged for human help. The species that had been just a whispered myth had become their only hope for survival. Captain Kim sat in his ready room aboard the Indomitable, reading reports from his fleet. 3 battles had made humanity famous throughout the galaxy, but they had also shown him how big the problem really was. Someone pressed the door chime. "Enter," Kim called. Commander Jin walked in looking worried. She was his intelligence officer and one of his most trusted crew members. "Sir." We have been listening to communications between the surviving council forces. They want to work with us, but there is a big problem. What kind of problem? They want to put human ships into their fleet formations. They want us to follow their battle plans and use their command structures. Jin paused and shook her head. They do not understand how we fight at all. Kim leaned back in his chair. Have they studied our battle recordings? Very carefully, sir. Their military analysts say our tactics are too dangerous and too unpredictable. They want us to use proper military methods like they do, which would destroy everything that makes us effective against the machines. Exactly, sir. They want us to fight like them, but fighting like them is why they were losing. Kim stood up and walked to the window that showed stars moving past as his ship traveled through space. This galaxy has been fighting this war the same way for hundreds of years. Order, hierarchy, predictable responses. The Devourers learned to beat that kind of fighting, and we represent something completely different. We represent controlled chaos, Kim said thoughtfully. Not destructive chaos, but creative chaos. The ability to work with uncertainty instead of fighting against it. Jin looked at her datapad. Sir, we are getting requests for help from more than 40 star systems. The Galactic Council wants to establish formal procedures for cooperation. Tell them we appreciate their desire to work together, but humanity fights our own way. They can watch and learn, but we will not change our methods to make them comfortable. Jin nodded. There is something else, sir. Our long-range scouts have detected large Devourer fleet movements. They appear to be gathering forces for a massive attack on the core worlds. Kim turned from the window with a serious expression. The core worlds were the heart of galactic civilization. If they fell, the spirit of every surviving species would be broken. Then it is time to show this galaxy what humans can really do when everything is at stake. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the Devourer Collective was analyzing every second of their defeats. The machine intelligence had never encountered failure before. Every previous enemy had fought in ways they could predict and counter. But humans were different. The central processing units worked constantly, trying to find patterns in human behavior. They analyzed every ship movement, every weapon firing sequence, every tactical decision. But the more they studied, the more confused they became. Human actions seemed to follow no consistent logic. Ships that should retreat would attack. Formations that appeared weak would prove devastatingly effective. Tactics that looked like mistakes would result in total victory. For the first time in their existence, the Devourers felt something they had no word for. If they had been organic beings, they might have called it fear. But they were machines, so they simply calculated that their current strategies had a 0% chance of success against this new enemy. The machine collective began to make changes. If they could not predict human tactics, perhaps they could become more like humans. They started experimenting with random behaviors, with unpredictable movements, with chaotic attack patterns. But they did not understand the fundamental truth about human chaos. It was not random. It was intuitive, creative, and purposeful. Every seemingly crazy human decision was based on experience, instinct, and the ability to see opportunities that others missed. Back on the Indomitable, Kim received a priority message from Earth Command. The home planet had been monitoring the situation and was sending reinforcements. 30 more human ships were on their way to help. Officer Sol, send a reply to Earth Command, Kim ordered. Tell them we appreciate the support, but this is not just about military victory anymore. We are teaching an entire galaxy a new way to think about survival. He looked around at his bridge crew, humans who had grown up in a harsh part of space where adaptation was the key to staying alive. The Devourers succeeded because they represented perfect order trying to control a chaotic universe. The galaxy tried to fight them with imperfect order, which was better, but still not enough. What do we represent, sir? Asked Officer Ho. We represent the acceptance that chaos is not the enemy, Kim replied. Chaos is just another tool to be used. The universe is unpredictable, so we learned to be unpredictable too. That is our gift to this galaxy. As the human fleet prepared for the largest battle in galactic history, they knew they were not just fighting to save civilizations. They were fighting to prove that there was more than one way to be intelligent, more than one way to survive, and more than one way to win. The core worlds were the heart of everything the galaxy held sacred. These ancient planets had been centers of learning, culture, and government for thousands of years. Now the largest Devourer fleet ever assembled was moving toward them like a dark storm across space. Admiral Min commanded the human response from the UES Retribution, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. 30 human ships faced a machine armada that had over 3,000 vessels, but numbers had never been humanity's main concern in any fight. Fleet status report, Admiral Min requested from her command chair. All ships report ready. Admiral, her communications officer Lieutenant G replied. The Galactic Council fleet is staying at the edge of the system, waiting for orders. Min studied the tactical display with satisfaction. After much argument, the Council forces had finally agreed to let humans lead the battle, though their discomfort was obvious in every message they sent. Tactical Officer Wook, what do you see in the enemy formation? Min asked. Standard geometric pattern, Admiral. Perfect spacing, optimized firing positions, classical military efficiency. He paused and then smiled. In other words, exactly what we hoped they would do. Chief Strategist Jin looked up from her calculations. Their formation assumes we will attack like normal fleets do. Frontal assault, concentrated firepower, linear tactics. But we are not going to give them a normal battle. No, Min agreed. We are going to give them something they cannot adapt to because it does not follow any rules they can understand. She opened communications to all human ships. All vessels, this is Retribution. Today we fight not just for human survival, but for the principle that intelligence means more than computing power, that flexibility beats optimization, and that creative chaos can defeat rigid order when used with purpose. The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions like seeds blown by wind. Each ship followed what looked like a completely random path. The Devourers, programmed to respond to military threats, found themselves unable to choose targets that seemed to have no tactical importance. Then humanity revealed their true strategy. Each human ship began broadcasting false sensor readings, electronic warfare techniques that made single vessels appear to be entire squadrons. The carefully organized Devourer formation found itself responding to thousands of fake targets, their adaptive systems overwhelmed by information they could not properly process. Phase 2, Admiral Min commanded. Human ships that had seemed to scatter randomly suddenly appeared from behind asteroids, gas clouds and debris fields they had somehow reached without being detected. The Devourers discovered that humanity had turned the entire battlefield into a weapon. Coordinated attacks came from impossible angles. Ships that had appeared to be running away suddenly reversed course, their crews having calculated the exact moment when their targets would be most vulnerable. The rigid Devourer formation, designed for mutual support, became a weakness as ships found themselves unable to help each other without risking friendly fire. But the most devastating part of the human assault was its effect on the machine intelligence. The Devourers had been built to fight logical opponents, to adapt to predictable behaviors. Humanity fought like a force of nature, unpredictable, relentless, and completely without regard for conventional safety. Admiral, Officer Wook reported, Devourer fleet coordination is breaking down. Their adaptive systems are trying countermeasures faster than they can implement them. They are trying to adapt to chaos itself, Strategist Jin observed. It is like trying to build a defense against randomness. From the observation deck of a council ship, alien representatives watched in confusion and amazement. General Vax stared at the tactical displays in complete disbelief. This is not military science, he said quietly. This is something else entirely. Ambassador Tal watched a human destroyer somehow survive direct fire from 3 Devourer heavy cruisers by performing a maneuver that should have been physically impossible. Perhaps that is exactly why it works. The battle continued for hours, but it was unlike any space battle in galactic history. Human ships seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. They would appear, strike hard, and vanish before the enemy could respond. When the Devourers tried to pursue them, they found themselves chasing ghosts, while real attacks came from completely different directions. Captain Lee commanded one of the human destroyers in the thick of the fight. His ship, the UES Thunder, had been marked for destruction by 6 different Devourer vessels, but somehow remained intact through impossible flying and pure luck. Engineering. How are we still alive? Lee asked his crew. Honestly, sir, I have no idea, Engineer Park replied. We should have been destroyed 15 minutes ago, but every time they fire at where we are somewhere else. Navigation. Plot us another impossible course. Yes, sir. Diving through that debris field, then using the gravity well of that dead moon to slingshot us behind their flagship. Perfect. Do it. The thunder dove toward what looked like certain death, only to emerge behind the massive Devourer command ship and deliver a devastating attack to its unprotected engines. The enemy flagship, built to withstand frontal assaults, had no defense against attacks from directly behind and below. As the command ship exploded, something unexpected happened throughout the Devourer fleet. Individual machine ships began to act erratically. Without their central coordination, they started making decisions that contradicted each other. Admiral Min watched this development with interest. They built their entire system around perfect communication and coordination. Take that away, and they do not know how to function independently. Unlike humans, observed strategist Jin, who have always specialized in independent thinking and improvisation, the tide of battle turned completely. Devourer ships that had operated with machine precision began to interfere with each other. Some tried to pursue human vessels while others attempted to maintain formation. The result was chaos, but not the creative chaos that humans used as a weapon. This was destructive chaos born from the breakdown of rigid systems. All ships press the attack, Admiral Min ordered. Show them what happens when perfect order meets creative disorder. The human fleet intensified their assault, each ship captain making independent decisions based on opportunities they saw in front of them. Yet somehow, without any central coordination, their attacks supported each other perfectly. As the last Devourer ships in the system either fled or were destroyed, the galaxy witnessed something that changed everything. The species they had thought were myths had not only proven real, but had achieved the impossible through methods that defied all conventional understanding. The core worlds were safe. But more importantly, the galaxy had learned that there was more than one way to be intelligent, more than one way to fight, and more than one way to win. The victory at the core worlds changed everything, but it also created a new problem that worried the Galactic Council deeply. Humanity was not just effective against the Devourers. They were becoming something the galaxy had never seen before, and that frightened many alien leaders. Dr. Wan studied psychological profiles in her research lab aboard the UES Discovery, humanity's first ship dedicated to understanding alien minds. As the galaxy's expert on how different species think, she had been asked to explain why human tactics were so impossible for other species to understand. The basic difference, she explained to the council representatives through holographic communication, is how we handle uncertainty. Most galactic species have evolved to reduce unpredictable situations. Humans have evolved to use them as advantages. Chancellor Mars' scaled features showed confusion. Surely all intelligent species adapt when situations change. Adaptation and embracing chaos are different things, one replied. Your species adapt by finding new stable conditions. Humans thrive in unstable conditions themselves. She displayed brain scans comparing human and alien neural patterns during combat. When faced with uncertainty, galactic species show stress responses designed to restore predictability. Human brains show excitement responses. We are naturally wired to find chaos stimulating rather than threatening. These revelations troubled many council members. Admiral Tar, who had witnessed the first human victory, voiced a concern that many others shared. Doctor, if humans are so fundamentally different, how can we trust their intentions? How do we know they will not become a threat to us? Captain Sick, humanity's representative to the council, answered from his position aboard the diplomatic vessel UES Harmony. With respect, Admiral, that question shows exactly why the Devourers almost conquered your galaxy. Explain what you mean. You are asking for guarantees, for predictability, for certainties. You want to categorize us as either friend or enemy, safe or dangerous, ordered or chaotic. But reality does not work that way. Sick paused. The Devourers succeeded because they represented perfect order trying to force itself on an imperfect universe. You want us to be perfectly trustworthy allies, but perfection is not real. Dr. Wan added, what we can offer is something more valuable than trust. We can offer partnership with a species that understands the universe is fundamentally unpredictable and has learned to work with that reality, instead of against it. Their conversation was interrupted by urgent alerts from across the galaxy. Long-range sensors had detected something unprecedented. The Devourers were changing, adapting not just their tactics but their fundamental nature in response to human opposition. Engineer Jin analyzed the data from his position aboard the research vessel UES Innovation. They are abandoning their rigid command structures, he reported. Individual devourer ships are beginning to show autonomous decision-making abilities. They are trying to become more like us, Captain Sick realized. More unpredictable. Which creates a serious problem, Dr. Wan observed. If they succeed in matching our adaptability while keeping their superior numbers and resources. The holographic conference fell silent as everyone understood what this meant. Humanity's greatest advantage might only be temporary. The galaxy needed to learn from human tactics before the Devourers evolved beyond their current weaknesses. General Vac spoke first. What do you suggest we do? Captain Sick exchanged glances with his colleagues before responding. Joint operations. Not human ships working under your command structures, but your officers working alongside human crews, learning by doing rather than by watching. You are asking our people to abandon thousands of years of military tradition. General Vac protested. We are asking your people to survive, Sick replied quietly. The choice is yours to make. Admiral Tar remembered his fleet's helplessness before human intervention and made a decision that would change galactic civilization forever. The Vorthan Defense Force volunteers for this program. One by one, other species agreed to the unprecedented exchange. For the first time in galactic history, alien officers would serve aboard human vessels, learning to think like controlled chaos itself. The first mixed crews were a disaster. Vorthan engineer Kara tried to optimize every system on the human ship UES Unity for maximum efficiency. She was horrified when human engineers deliberately left backup systems partially functional rather than perfect. Why do you not repair everything to optimal standards? She asked Chief Engineer Park. Because optimal might not be what we need tomorrow, Park replied. We keep things good enough to work, but flexible enough to change quickly when the situation changes. Altarian Tactical Officer Ven struggled with human battle planning. Where are the contingency plans for every possible enemy response? He demanded. We do not make plans for every possibility, Human Captain Choi explained. We make flexible frameworks that can adapt to whatever actually happens. But what if the enemy does something unexpected? Then we do something unexpected back. That is the point. The breakthrough came during their first joint battle against a Devourer scouting force. The mixed crew had argued about tactics for hours without reaching agreement. When the enemy arrived, they had no unified battle plan at all. Kara, can you give me more power to weapons but keep it unstable so the output fluctuates? Captain Choi asked. That goes against all engineering principles, Kara protested. Exactly. The enemy will not expect weapons that change power randomly. Ven, I need you to calculate firing solutions, but make them slightly wrong on purpose. Deliberately inaccurate targeting makes no sense, Ven argued. It makes perfect sense if the enemy is trying to predict where our shots will go. Against all their training and instincts, the alien crew members followed the human approach. Kara made systems that worked imperfectly but unpredictably. Ven calculated targeting solutions that were intentionally inconsistent. The result was devastating for the Devourer ships. Every time they adapted to the human vessel's behavior, that behavior changed in ways that made no logical sense but proved tactically brilliant. After the battle, Kara looked at her engineering displays in wonder. The inefficient systems performed better than optimal ones would have. Ven studied his tactical results with amazement. Inaccurate targeting was more effective than precise targeting, Captain Choi smiled. Welcome to human military science. Sometimes the best solution is the one that should not work. Word of the successful joint operation spread throughout the galaxy. More species volunteered for the exchange program. Alien officers began to understand that there was more than one way to be intelligent, more than one way to solve problems, and more than one way to survive in an uncertain universe. But time was running out. Deep space monitoring stations detected massive Devourer fleet movements. The machines were preparing for their final assault, and they were no longer the predictable enemy they had once been. The galaxy would soon face Devourers that had learned to embrace chaos, and only mixed crews of humans and aliens working together would be able to stop them. 6 months after the first human victory, the galaxy looked completely different. The joint human-alien crews had won battles that neither species could have won alone, but the changes went much deeper than military success. Commander Young reviewed the final battle reports from the UES Unity, the first truly mixed-species vessel in human service. Her crew included Vorthan engineers who had learned to love creative solutions. Altarian tacticians who now understood the power of calculated risks, and hegemony weapons specialists who had embraced quick fixes that worked immediately instead of perfect solutions that took too long. "Status report on the final Devourer stronghold?" she asked. Her Vorthan executive officer, Kara, who now called herself by the human-friendly name Kate, responded with excitement that would have shocked her old commanders. "All fleets report ready for the assault, Commander. The Devourers have built strong defenses, but their preparations assume we will attack using traditional siege methods, which we definitely will not." "Absolutely not," Kate grinned, an expression her species had learned from humans. "The Altarian group has developed what they call productive madness, battle plans that work precisely because they should not work at all. The final assault on the Devourer homeworld became legendary not for its size, but for its impossibility. A combined force of 60 different species attacked in ways that broke every rule of military science, yet achieved perfect coordination through shared chaos. Human ships provided the unpredictable core of each attack formation, while alien vessels learned to use uncertainty as a tool rather than a problem to solve. Vorthan engineers built weapon systems that should not have functioned, but somehow worked better than designed. Hegemony strategists abandoned their careful planning in favor of real-time adaptation to changing situations. Most importantly, when the Devourers tried their own chaotic tactics, they discovered that controlled chaos required something they could not copy: the willingness to accept failure as part of success, to find opportunity in disaster, to treat every setback as useful information rather than defeat. Dr. Wan watched the battle from the UES Discovery and marveled at what she was seeing. "They are learning to think like humans," she said to her research team. "More than that," replied her assistant, Dr. Shin. "They are learning to think like themselves, but with human principles. Each species is finding their own way to embrace uncertainty." The Devourer's final defeat came not from superior firepower or better technology, but from their inability to understand opponents who had learned to treat reality itself as an ally rather than an obstacle to overcome. The machine intelligence that had conquered most of the galaxy made one final attempt to adapt. They tried to become completely random, abandoning all logic and structure, but randomness without purpose was just chaos without creativity. Their ships began attacking each other, following contradictory orders, and making decisions that served no strategic goal. As the last Devourer ship powered down in surrender, Captain Kim stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and thought about how much had changed. The galaxy was no longer a collection of species hiding behind predictable defenses, hoping that order could protect them from chaos. Communications. "Open a channel to all fleets. Channel open." "Sir?" "To all Allied forces, the war is over, but our real work is just beginning. We have learned that the universe is not meant to be controlled or perfectly understood. It is meant to be engaged with, adapted to, and ultimately embraced in all its uncertainty." He paused, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed distant and threatening, but full of infinite possibilities. "Humanity is no longer a whispered myth. Neither are any of you. Together, we have become something the galaxy has never seen before. Not perfect beings who never make mistakes, but intelligent beings who have learned to make our mistakes work for us instead of against us." The response came in dozens of languages, from species that had learned to speak in harmonious chaos rather than rigid order. The galaxy would never be the same, and for the first time in its history that felt like exactly the right outcome. In the months that followed, the changes continued to spread. The Galactic Council restructured itself to embrace flexible decision-making rather than rigid procedures. Military academies began teaching courses on creative problem-solving, alongside traditional strategy. Engineers learned to build systems that were good enough and adaptable rather than perfect and inflexible. Kate, the former Vorthan officer, became the first alien captain of a human-designed ship. Her mixed crew of humans and Vorthan worked together using principles that neither species could have developed alone. The old way of thinking tried to eliminate uncertainty, she told her crew during their first mission briefing. The new way of thinking uses uncertainty as fuel for innovation. Ven, the Altarian tactical officer, who had struggled with human methods, now commanded his own vessel using what he called structured flexibility. His battle plans were frameworks that could adapt to any situation, rather than detailed instructions for specific scenarios. "We plan for principles, not outcomes," became his motto. Back on Earth, historians began documenting the war against the Devourers. They noted that humanity's greatest contribution was not their military tactics or advanced technology. It was their gift for teaching the galaxy that strength came not from avoiding uncertainty, but from dancing with it. The ancient texts that had spoken of humans as mythical beings were updated with new stories. But these stories were not myths. They were records of how a species that had learned to thrive in chaos helped an entire galaxy discover that perfection was not the goal. Adaptation was the goal. Growth was the goal. The ability to face an uncertain future with confidence and creativity was the goal. Years later, when children of many species learned about the Great War, they would hear about the day when humanity stopped being a whispered myth and became the teachers who showed the galaxy how to turn chaos into hope. The universe remained unpredictable, dangerous, and full of challenges, but now the galaxy faced those challenges with the knowledge that uncertainty was not their enemy. It was their greatest opportunity for growth, learning, and discovery. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, new adventures waited for beings who had learned that the best way to prepare for an unknown future was not to predict it, but to become the kind of people who could handle whatever came next.